Hey folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Saurabh Pol. Welcome to Pol Ki Bol. Today I'm going to talk about why you can't buy a home in India even with two incomes, right? So I am in my early 30s, so is my wife, and we are still living on rent. And a few of my cousins have their own homes, but most of them do not, right? And many of my friends, they live on rent. Some of them want to buy their own homes but are not able to. And these are people who do well for themselves, right? Like their monthly income is like as a couple is not less than 4 lakh rupees. Like monthly 4 lakh रुपए कमा के भी, these people are not able to actually afford a home in Mumbai. They're not able to easily afford a home in the good parts of Bangalore. They're able to afford homes in the outskirts of Bangalore, in the outskirts of NCR, but not exactly in some of the better areas of these places, right? Even Hyderabad, which was considered an affordable option, relatively speaking, is no longer what it once was. Even its rent as well as property prices have really shot up like it's nobody's business, right? Why is this happening, right? Why exactly is this happening? And for that, what I did was I went through this article that I was reading, and I thought, you know what, it would be great to share it with you guys, because earlier we used to think, ज़्यादा पैसा कमाओगे तो फ्लैट खरीद पाओगे. And I recently moved into a new flat, which is why I've been a bit late in terms of posting. So sorry about that, actually. But many people are like, यार तू इतना rent भरता है, तू घर क्यों नहीं खरीदता? And I was like, bro, if I actually go out and buy a house, like try to buy a house in Mumbai or even Navi Mumbai, it's a minimum 1.5 CR to 2 CR ka, loan that I'll have to take. Because if I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to buy a house for the future, right? Like the present and the future. No point in buying a house for now and just 3-4 years down the line be like, fuck, chota pad gaya. Like it doesn't make sense, or it's like, hey, it doesn't match our aspirations. So if you're going to buy a house, ensure that you buy it कि यार 10 साल तो यहाँ पे रहूंगा मैं. That's my advice. That's my logic. So what happened is, I was speaking to a lot of people who were like कि यार मतलब लोन ले ले, घर ले ले, EMI भर दे, इतना रेंट भर रहा है तो. What people are not realizing is that the EMIs that people you are going to pay for a decent house in Mumbai, or even Navi Mumbai, the decent parts of it, right? They are not going to cost less than 1.5 lakhs per month. Okay. आपको 1.25 या 1.5 लाख रुपए महीने का भरना पड़ेगा, तब जाके आपको 1.5 लाख या 1.5 करोड़ या 2 करोड़ का लोन मिलेगा. बिकॉज दे दे के आप कितना ही डाउन पेमेंट दोगे, 25-30 लाख, उसके ऊपर यू कांट गिव अ डाउन पेमेंट, राइट? एंड व्हाट हैपेंस बिकॉज ऑफ दिस इज, पीपल थिंक कि यार इफ समवनस पेइंग 60,000 या 70,000 का रेंट, दे आर लाइक ये तो पागल हो गया आदमी. Bro, 60-70,000 का rent, if you convert that into EMI, that is not one more than 1 CR. 1 करोड़ का अगर आपको लोन मिल रहा है, तो उससे आप घंटा नहीं खरीद पाओगे बॉम्बे में. 1 BHK आएगा आपको 1 सवा 1 करोड़ में मुंबई में, इन डिसेंट एरियाज इज व्हाट आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. मैं तो साउथ बॉम्बे वगैरह तो बात ही नहीं कर रहा, मतलब इट्स स्टूपिड टू इवन गो ओवर देयर, राइट? लाइक साउथ बॉम्बे, बैंड्रा एंड सो ऑन. सो आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट लाइक बेसिक स्टफ लाइक अंधेरी, गोरेगांव, even Kandivli, Malad, those towards the northern side of Mumbai. You're talking about Seawood, Sanpada, not even Kharghar in Navi Mumbai, which is like the most expensive part of Navi Mumbai is actually Kharghar, if anyone knows anything. It's actually parts of Seawoods and a huge chunk of Kharghar, right? And it's going to keep increasing because of the new airport that's going to start very soon. It's already started for freight operations, but not for passenger flights, right? And it's going to commercial flights. It's going to start very soon. So I just wanted to share this with you, right? This article I just wanted to share. Let's see if you guys can see it. And to do this, let me sort myself out a little bit here. And here we go. Why dual incomes can't buy you a home? Startup founder explains India's housing mismatch. He says that the population to housing supply ratio is as high as 10 to 1, which means हर घर के लिए 10 लोग हैं, while in many developed countries the population that ratio is 3 to 5 times lower, which means like हर घर के लिए 2 लोग हैं in some countries, or there are say around 3 to 4 people vying for the same house. But when there are 10 people vying for the same house, it's a seller's market. It's as simple as that, right? So that is what you need to keep in mind. Siddharth Mukund, he's the founder of Rainbow Money. I don't know what that is, but he's like, he struck a nerve. He's like, our parents bought a 3 BHK with a single salary. Today, most of us can't afford an apartment even with dual incomes. That's absolutely true. The primary reason isn't what you think. Like every asset class, housing prices are simply a function of supply and demand. He broke down the problem. ये तो मैंने बता दिया. He said the challenge, he argued, isn't about having enough homes. It's about having enough affordable, livable supply. He says, despite 11 million vacant urban homes, India faces a shortage of nearly 19 million units, which means like 10 to 20 kar lo, just to make the mathematics a little easier. So we should be still be having 30 million units. 3 करोड़ घर होने चाहिए, सिर्फ 1 करोड़ घर है हमारे पास. And even the 1 crore that we have, they are in the luxury segment or in the non-affordable segment, right? And that is the distribution mismatch. So अगर आप नॉर्मल हो, हमारी तरह हो, आप सिर्फ सैलरी कमाते हो, नॉर्मल आदमी हो, तो बाइंग अ हाउस इज प्रोहिबिटिवली एक्सपेंसिव इन आर मेट्रोज, राइट? एंड यूल बी लाइक, तो निकल जाओ मेट्रोज से. The reality is that there are not enough decent jobs outside of metros in India, and it's not going to change for another 5 to 10 years. I don't see it happening. And even if you do get those jobs, there is hardly any growth. I promise you, there is very little growth outside of the metros. घूम फिर के वो लोग तुमको वापस बुला ही लेंगे, और they'll be like, okay, you know what, someone else is getting promoted. I'm sorry, that's how it works. And work from home is no longer a sustainable or a scalable solution for corporate India. They are like, till a certain limit we'll allow it, over and above that not really. Very few companies are able to do that, right? Most of them are not going to do that. So there's that. Now why is this happening? According to the adding to the crunch of structural factors. What are those? Land politics. Now let me break them down one by one. Land politics is very simple. The government is like, मेरे को जाना है और मुझको यहाँ पे घर बांधना है, या हमको यहाँ पे हाईवे डालना है, या अफोर्डेबल घर बनाने हैं. उसके लिए आपको लैंड उठानी पड़ती है. वो लैंड पे लोग रह रहे होते हैं. यूजुअली दे आर फार्मर्स, बिकॉज दैट्स द केस इन इंडिया, और दे आर विलेजर्स, राइट? एंड दे गेट अ पॉलिटिशियन बिहाइंड देम हु इज लाइक कि आप इनको लैंड देना ही मत. ये अगर लैंड का कीमत, आपके लैंड का कीमत अगर 10 लाख है या 20 लाख है, उसके लिए आप 1 करोड़ से स्टार्ट करो. वो जब तक, और अगर आपको मतलब 10x ऑफ योर यूजुअल अमाउंट, राइट? और अगर नहीं, और ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट द लैंड, वट एवर द लैंड विल बी एक्वायर्ड बाय द गवर्नमेंट, इफ जॉब्स आर क्रिएटेड ओवर देयर और इफ हाउसेज आर क्रिएटेड ओवर देयर, तो हमको यहाँ पे घर चाहिए, एक नहीं 4 घर चाहिए, and so on and so forth. So the cost of land acquisition is insane, and if the government doesn't listen to them, so there are protests, there are gherav bandi, and there is violence, in fact, in some cases, right? And the government is extremely scared of any crowd based action, you know. So they are like, you know what, we'll just pay them. जो अमाउंट पे अगर हमको 100 करोड़ देना था, हम 400 करोड़ दे के बैठ जाएंगे, बट एटलीस्ट लेट्स गेट द लैंड, वील रिकवर इट लेटर फ्रॉम द रिच पीपल. एंड हु आर दीज रिच पीपल अकॉर्डिंग टू देम? यू एंड मी, बिकॉज दे सेल इट टू द, यू नो, बिल्डर हु इज लाइक, फक यार, ये मेरे पास 100 करोड़ में आना चाहिए था, 150 करोड़ में आना चाहिए था, ये मेरे को आया है 300 करोड़ पे. मैं अभी जो फ्लैट मेरे को 25 लाख का बेचना था, मैं बेचूंगा 50 लाख या 70 लाख पे मिनिमम. So that is where you're gone, which is why we pay tolls also, by the way, because the cost of the land acquisition on which the highway was built is so high. You have no option but to go over and above the taxes and pay for it. That is the reality. Investor speculation is English for the fact that, hey, the existing buyers spend 1 CR to buy this. 1 करोड़ पे खरीदा है, उनको बेचना है उसको 1 करोड़ 20 लाख पे, या 1.5 करोड़ पे, या 2 करोड़ पे, या 4 करोड़ पे. दे डोंट वांट द प्राइसेस टू गो डाउन. दे आर लाइक, तू कुछ भी कर, तू प्राइस नहीं गिराना चाहिए. So that is investor speculation, is basically existing owners are like, we can't let the prices go down. As simple as that. Because, and what is one way prices go down? If there is too much supply. If there's too much supply, your existing supply का value कम हो जाता है. So they are like कि ज़्यादा अगर बढ़ गया, तो इधर जो हमने पहले से ही घर बना के रखे हैं, उनका वैल्यू डाउन हो जाएगा, क्योंकि सप्लाई आ गया लोगों के पास. सो दैट इज अनदर रीजन. FSI is फ्लो स्पेस इंडेक्स, विच इज बेसिकली, अगर आपके पास, यू नो, दिस इज फॉर आर्ग्यूमेंट सेक, इफ यू हैव 100 स्क्वायर मीटर्स का ये, तो पहले आप सिर्फ 100 मीटर का बना सकते थे ऊपर. You know, if you had 100 meters like this, you could only build at 100 meters tall. Today, floor space index in some cases are like double of what your horizontal length of the land is. And now you can take it to, okay, 2.1 or three times the floor space that you have, right? So, which means the height of your building increases, which means the number of units you can have increases, right? So, which means the supply increases. But in many places, they are like, नहीं, अगर तुम्हारा इतना land patch है, तुम इतना ही बना सकते हो, अब इससे ज़्यादा नहीं बना सकते. So, you get me? That is another reason your supply goes down and the prices stay high, pricing people like you and me out of the market, right? And of course, black money flows. Guys, 100 बात की एक बात, real estate in India is a beautiful way of just hiding your black money. And that is not changing for a few decades. As simple as that, right? This is the world in which we are born in. This is the world in which we'll have to live in. I don't see any change happening for this until we get old. I'm being very serious. So that's not happening. Black money is not going away. People suddenly do not become honest, and there is way too much incentive. And real estate will continue to be one way of parking black money and ill-gotten wealth in this country. So this leaves genuine home buyers with little bargaining power, right? So that's the whole thing. And they are like builders in sync with banks, handing out loans freely. They're inflating values because giving out loans, financing things, capitalizing things is much easier. पहले क्या था यार, मेरे पास है 50 लाख, मैं और 1 करोड़ कहाँ से लेके आऊं. Earlier it wasn't that easy. Now it is getting easier because the banks are like, I'll give you 1 crore, pay me back over a period of 30 years. पहले 1 करोड़ नहीं मिलने का, right? So there's that. So by the way, if you earn 4 lakhs a month, companies, banks will give you 60 times your monthly amount. So आपको 2.5 करोड़ का लोन मिल जाएगा. But getting that loan again starts another cycle in your life where you are like, oh shit, I have a loan in my on my head, right? So you have to be very careful about that. So there's that. So anyway, yeah, a Bangalore-based professional noted that while homes in developing areas remained affordable, most buyers preferred established localities despite traffic and infrastructural hurdles. Now, why is it? Why is it that लोगों को बाहर नहीं जाना है? Because our public transport sucks in India. Please understand, the moment public transport improves, the cost of your houses will also go down, or at least they'll not increase as much. Because it means मेरे को यहीं पे नहीं रहना है, मैं वहां पे दूर 15 किलोमीटर दूर रह के भी मैं आराम से आ सकता हूँ या आ सकती हूँ, right? So public transport is essential to keep your real estate prices in check. But it's not improved. It's not going to improve for another 5 6 years in Mumbai and another 10 years across, I would say, Bangalore. Bangalore is even worse from what I've heard, right? So there is that. And yeah, earlier it was like parents save for 30 years before buying. Now people buy 27, 30, often bigger homes for smaller families, right? So yeah, financially it makes sense to rent in your 30s and 40s and so on and so forth and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, that's what I wanted to share, right? Like in terms of buying a house is no longer what it once was. And earlier, and I remember discussing this with my parents, right? Like, hey man, I'm telling you, I did everything right, the way I see it, in my career so far, and still everything is so incredibly unaffordable. It's not even funny. And our parents got time pay. It was like I made a simple calculation, like what was your salary when you bought a house, what was the cost of that house, and you multiply it by what, three times. You multiply it by three times and you bought that house, right? Or twice of your annual salary. In my case, a house which I want to buy is 5 to 6 times my annual salary, if not more. Sometimes it's 10 times your annual salary. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? यार, तो तुम रहो 2 घंटा दूर, ट्रैवल करो 4 घंटा रोज. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Like, you will ruin your life if you do that. So that is why most of us are renting as of now. Hopefully we are able to do better and earn more and get loans which aren't as daunting as some of them seem to me right now, right? So that's my whole thing. If you're going to get a loan, ensure, that's my calculation, it shouldn't be more than three times your annual salary. That's my whole thing. 3 to 5 times your annual salary, because that's where I feel comfortable. Okay, that's a good number to be living with, because you should be able to pay back your loans, guys. That's extremely important, right? So yeah, anyway, those were my thoughts on and of course this article on why uh buying a house in India is extremely difficult in urban India, especially even when with two incomes. Things have become worse in because of these 3 4 factors that I mentioned, right? Investor speculations like existing users, flow spacing index, the politics and the money that is spent on just acquiring land is massive, and we are an agrarian society which is being dragged into the 21st century. That is the reality. Most people are living in the 1800s, not even the 1900s. They're living in the 1800s with Geo. Reliance Geo, a Chinese handset, and the 1800s. That is how millions of people in India live. And we are trying to tell them, Aapka land humko de do. Obviously, they're going to play a hard bargain, and that's their right. Right. So that's how it works. We are not China. We can't just steamroll and bulldoze things. Um, that is one of the reasons the cost is so high. Flow space index, flow space FSI solve ho jata hai, frankly, but the cost of acquisition and investor speculation. But at the end of the day, even if you solve all these things, the biggest factor is black money. As long as there is an infinite supply of money for builders to just keep giving their flats to, they're fine. They're fine. They don't need to worry. They don't need to worry. So that's the whole thing. And I don't think that's getting solved for another 25, 30 years. It's not. So yeah, until then, kamao, kamao. That's the only thing. That was Pol Ke Bol on the real estate crisis in India, in urban India. Like, comment, subscribe. See ya.